Hello, Dicks and Ghouls. It's another Elric video. Today I got my tome of, not today, this month, I got my Fantasy Masterworks Elric of Melnibone tome, which contains the first Elric stories chronologically. But before I go into this one, I have to update you on this book I was reading the previous month. I've read the part of it, and I've yet to read the rest of the material in it because it's early content, as I told you. And we should talk about the concept of early content. And there is something that is both attractive and also detractive to Michael Moorcock's work, and this is his need to incorporate each and every of his work into the same multiverse, which means that there's stuff to read all the time. You can basically get any of the Trans books, and it's part of a bigger story. There's not just Elric. When you're done with Elric, there is Corum, there is Hawkmoon, there is Rekosi, there are the Von Becks, the Dancers at the End of Time, the Nomad of the Time Stream, or the Cane of Mars, I believe, series. So yes, there's plenty of material there to read, but at the same time, there's a lot of effort to retcon stuff, to add stories where there were not before, and maybe rip yourself off. And I think that one of the issues of this book, The Sleeping Sorceress, was that it was written after the stories in this book, after book 5 and book 6, which we'll talk about next month. And it's sort of like a prequel to the first story of The Bane of the Black Sword. Also, another fact, I believe that versions of Bane of the Black Sword also have a Rakir story, which I'm not sure exactly in my bookshelves at the moment, so I have not read that. I'll go for the three Elric stories in this one, which are kind of interesting on their own because they further the plot, something that it's not that easy to say for the previous book in the series, alright? Because the stories were written after the first two Elric stories, The Dreaming City and While the Gods Laugh. All three of them were written in 1962, and Stormbringer was first published in 1965. So that should give you an idea that some of the stories we've already read in the Elric saga were written after these ones, and in ways they retcon a lot of the things happening here, and the world is not quite set yet. Let's start with the Stealer of Souls, which is kind of interesting because this is where we have the first mentions of the incel maids Thalebkana as well as the cougar queen Ysana. You see, Elric is in a town somewhere in the northeast, and he's talking with some merchants, and he's planning to steal them. But they tell him that they have a job for him. He should go and kill one of the other merchants who is outbidding everybody. And he has a castle that is guarded by a tribe of desert people as well as the sorcerer Thalebkana. And at the moment that Elric hears the name Thalebkana, he really wants to go out and kill him. And we learn through exposition that Thalebkana was in love with Queen Ysana, he's in love with Queen Ysana, and then she scorned him for Elric, which dumped her, and he wants his revenge. Elric, of course, with Munglum, understands that there's no way in hell they'll breach the castle, so they know that there is a group of Melibonians in the area, and they are their leader is Divindvar, the Dragon Master of Melibone. So he goes to meet them, and of course there is some bad blood because Elric was the one who destroyed Ymir, the home city of Melibonians. But it's interesting to see how they parlay. I think that was one of the best parts of this story, and maybe of the book. The fake civility of them, the way they speak, the way the king of Melibone is trying to beg for one of his former subjugates to do his bidding, and how he bargains for their help and for his life, because some of the people there, some of the Melibonians there, really want to kill him. So yeah, Thalabgarna, of course, knows that Elric is coming for him, so he summons a demon, a frog-like demon, the Stealer of Souls, and he sends him against Elric. Elric fights the demon, and when he stabs the demon with the Stormbringer, he realizes that it's the demon draining him of his soul, not the other way around. So he fights, and he is teleported to Thalabkana's sanctum, where he's imprisoned. Thalib kind of wants to kill Elric, but the merchant they want to eliminate. He takes pity of Elric, they bargain, and lets him go. Yeah, it's not that, it's a sort of social story, and you need these conveniences. I get that, but in order to do that, Elric should leave his sword Stormbringer behind, and Elric needs Stormbringer in order to remain strong. He relies on the unholy strength Stormbringer gives him by taking the souls of the people he slays. Elric is taken in by his compatriots, but Muglum has another plan. He sneaks at night into the castle, he speaks with Ysana, and she agrees to give him Stormbringer. So the Melibonians do attack, they stop the castle, there's a big fight. Thaleb summons magic forces, but Elric is he's a match for him. He summons the elementals of air to attack the castle. Thaleb counter summons fire elementals, and they fight as the desert tribesmen and the Melibonians fight. Divimdvar is mortally wounded and dies, and Elric storms the castle. He finds that Thaleb has lost the battle as he's trying to fight against the elementals, and he's bad. He's a remnant of a human being. To be honest, Thaleb was one of the most boring villains in fantasy. His first appearance in the story, and his death, of course, is much preferable to the other stories we read about him, alright? Because after Michael Moorcock wrote Stormbringer, he wrote how Talib Karna and Ysana and Elric first met in the Singing Citadel. That was in book 3. So Elric is deprived of his vengeance, and he just slays Talib Karna so that his suffering ends. And as this happens, the merchant of the tower attacks Elric. Elric doesn't want to fight him because, the merchant saved Elric's life, so he wants to return the favor, but he's pressing on, and Elric kills him with the Stormbringer because he's forced to draw the sword, and once the sword is in his hands, people die. And everybody around Elric is dying. I mean, only Moongloom escapes death around Elric. So Gisana comes in after the merchant is slain, and Elric has a great one-liner. He was a merchant, he bargained too hard. It's a good story. That's a very good basic Elric story. There's a lot of character stuff, there's a lot of action, it's very compact and doesn't lose time. There's just a lot of action and a lot of character stuff. Ysana has forced Elric to follow her back to her palace as her lover in exchange for getting the sword. And Elric agrees. But as they return to the city they came from, people have learned that Elric has brought an army of Melibonians, and they're afraid. So the merchants who hired him, they have amassed a small fortune to give Elric and his raiders in order to appease them, to save their own city. And this is what happens. So in the end, Elric has to go with the cougar queen Ysana and make love to her. And he killed a man who saved his life. He took vengeance on another man he has sworn vengeance against. So he cries about this. he's going to make love to a beautiful, mature woman. Well, not beautiful, sensual, mature woman, and he's so sad about it. That is the doomed fate of Elric of Melnibone. Yeah, he's the emo. So yeah, that was the Stealer of Souls. Now let's go to the other story, Kings in Darkness. And this one was a good one. This one was also a good story, interesting. It starts with Munglum and Elric trying to escape the city of beggars because they were caught there and they had to escape. And yeah, the city of beggars, we saw what happened there in the previous book, which was written years after this one. So they escape to haunted forest. Elric wants to explore the forest because there's magical monsters there. He wants the adventure. Munglum is afraid. They stumble upon this beautiful girl called Zerazinia, and Munglum agrees to help her get home. Her relatives were attacked by the natives of the forest. They are sort of a barbarian tribe there. Of course, Munglum is charmed by her beauty, but so is Elric. And she returns the attention to Elric, so they fall in love madly and they agree to marry at first sight. It's not an instant love, it's an instant marriage, alright? And Elric is so gloomy and doomed about it, of course. They are camping in the forest, and Elric and Zarozinia do the nasty. Munglum has to watch, and they're all too exhausted and they fall asleep. Don't ask me, right? So the natives of the forest, the orc tribe, I believe, attack them, and they fight. They escape, but they lose their treasure. And losing their treasure, Munglum won't go for this, alright? So they decide to go back and trick them out of the treasure they had. Elric finds some rare herbs that, through some magical spells, make anybody who imbibes them invincible. So they take those herbs and they appear to the castle of the Men of Org, and when they attack, nothing penetrates their skin, so they say, "We're the messengers of the gods, and we're here to demand tribute." So they're taken to a feast, and there is the king of the orcs, who is not quite, doesn't quite believe the story they tell him. The son of the king gets also attracted to Zarozinia and wants to have her. And also there's the brother of the king who's a bard, and he comes in and tells a story, a song about the kings in darkness, a third king that lives below the hill, and that he wants to, that is going to come to the surface when when the royal blood is spilled. So they drag Elric, and he falls unconscious. He wakes up and he is tied to some stones on the hill while ghouls approach him. Zarazina is taken captive by the people of the Orc Forest, and probably the son of the king wants to ravage her. Elric, of course, being captured and ready to be eaten by ghouls, calls Arioch, and a thunder falls from the sky and breaks one of the rocks he's tied in. So he fights the ghouls using the chain he has. Meanwhile, Munglum, who has escaped the feast, is saving Zarozinia. The king's brother is going under the hill, and the sun is following him. And when they reach the burrow underneath the hill, he slays him, so his blood awakes the king under the hill. And so we have this gloomy castle, this tale of an old king who lives beneath, and ghouls and all this kind of stuff, the savage tribe. And as Elric returns to the hall to take his revenge, the ghouls attack, they slay the people of Org, but and of course Elric has Stormbringer, but Stormbringer cannot kill the Skeleton King, alright? So Munglum throws him a jar of oil as the king is close to the hearth, and Elric pushes him inside the flames, so he dies in flames. and that's the entire of the story. Elrion says that he is dependent on Stormbringer, but he realizes that he didn't need Stormbringer to win this fight because it was no help for him. Instead, he found all those herbs from the Forest of Truth, so he can stay strong using those herbs of Stormbringer and its unholy strength. And of course, he agrees to marry to Zarozinia and live with her peacefully, or so he thinks. But yeah, that's pretty much the story. That's pretty much the entire story. It's really interesting. It's nothing to write home about, but there is this castle, the king underneath, the savage people living there. There is a very strong Dark Souls vibes in the story, and I say that the Elric stories have a lot of the Dark Souls DNA in them. The crumbling kingdoms, the lost places with lore, ancient secrets, god, demons trapped underneath. There's a lot of this stuff. And of course, there's this dark hero, Elric. It's stories like this make me realize that Elric is the daddy of dark fantasy. And that's quite interesting. It's gothic. It's very gothic. I believe that Michael Moorcock was a big fan of Mervyn Peake's Gormenghast, and I think some of its manner punk sensibilities are in the story, along with, of course, some Conan sort of sorcery action. So yeah, that was very interesting. It was a very interesting story. So we have two solid stories up to this point. And now let's talk about the Caravan of Forgotten Dreams. Elric is living peacefully with Zarozinia, and he's warned that an army of barbarians from the east is coming. They killed Munglum's. Munglum was returning home to the east to find his relatives, and he got to his hometown only to find it destroyed, its people slain by this army of barbarians. 500,000 barbarians strong, led by the barbarian warlord Terran Gastek, has taken the soul of the great mage Drinid's Bara, who have stored the soul in a small cat. And if the cat dies, so does he. Um, so he's forced to do his bidding, and Elric won't take it. He sends a messenger to some of his Melibonian former friends, led by the Dragon Master's son, Divim Slorm, who may want to help him. I don't know. It's not sure. But Elric and Munglum conceive of a plan. They will try to infiltrate the army of the Flamebringer as mercenaries and try to retrieve the soul of the captured sorcerer. And so they do. And Elric has to retake Stormbringer, which is trapped in the armory of his father-in-law all this time. So Elric and Moongloom actually do infiltrate the army of the barbarians, and they do their best to try and save Divin, the captured maids, whose name I cannot pronounce right now. Of course, they have to follow the barbarian army into a big raid against a small town, which is obliterated. They do their best to save three children from the barbarians. They do kill a group who tries to challenge them. And afterwards, after the plunder, the rape, and the slaughter, the Flamebringer is asleep. They enter his tent and they steal the cat. But they're attacked by friends of the men they killed, so they have to fight, and in this fight, they lose the cat. So they rush back to the tent of the captured maids, who, of course, during the fight, he summoned a spell that destroyed the walls of the city. The barbarians attacked, so his power is just so amazing that there's no chance that Elric's new hometown will survive. So they get there, and Elric does a spell. He summons the cat god, who has an affinity for Melibonians, because in the opinion of the god, the Melibonians are very cat-like. They're vicious and predators, and selfish like the cats. So, as he does the spell, an army of barbarians gathers outside the tent, and they want to arrest Elric and Moongloom. The cat rushes through them, and so um, wasn't it captured too during this part? I'm not sure. Oh yes, yes, yes. I've forgotten a lot of things. All right, I'm stupid like that. All right. So, Elric and Moongloom get captured after the cat escapes. Because they have seen them trying to talk to the maids before. They're in a tent along with the messenger that Elric has sent to his people, to the Melibonians, and he informs them that he talked to the Dragon Lords, and they will try to wake up some of the dragons who are exhausted and come to his aid because this army will destroy everything of the Young Kingdoms, and they don't want that. Elric summons Stormbringer, they escape, he does the spell for the cat god as I told you, they release the sorcerer, of course everybody dies. So as Elric, Moongloom and the messenger are against an army of hundreds of thousands of barbarians, the dragons appear, five dragons from Melibone appear, and they lose their venomous fire upon the army of barbarians who run away. And Elric rides one of his dragons and he hunts for the barbarians and he feels the excitement of the hunt. He becomes a Melibonian again. And he realizes that he revels in the cruelty of his race and he's again lured by the evil of Stormbringers, so as he's flying high, he throws the sword away because he does not want it. And then he returns the dragon to his. I think the original Dragon Lord was his cousin, so that's his nephew, Divin Slorm. And he returns to his home, and he's very certain that he is free of the burden of his sword. And so he tells Rosinia. But Rosinia knows best because his sword has reappeared in her father's armory. But she tells Elric nothing of it because she cannot bring her heart to tell him that your sword is here. It has returned, you cannot get rid of the sword. So that was the Caravan of Forgotten Dreams. Yes, all three stories are very solid adventures. They set up some events to come for Stormbringer, which is a full novel and it's epic. It's fun. Unlike The Sleeping Sorceress, which felt like it was spinning its wheels, this one does have some imagination in it. It's, of course, very tropey. It's sword and sorcery stories. The ideas are nothing to write home about, but they play well enough with the tropes of the genre. They don't try to surpass it. They're not like What the Gods Love, which was an amazing story, but they're solid and fun, and they're not jumbled with trying to retcon a lot of stuff or tie things together or anything like that. They are stories on their own ground. They want to be what they are. They're very short too, so I get that. Yes, that's why we need the full story with Rakir on this one, but I didn't have it. Alright, I'm not sure if I have the story somewhere or not. It was called To Rescue Tunnelorn, I believe. So yeah, that was a fun book, but I'm really looking forward to reading the last one, Stormbringer, because that was what made me love Elric that much. And you know what? I go back to the era when I first read the stories, when I was 20, 21 years old, and I just binge read the entire six book series in like a week, on hot summer noons. It was fun back then, and rereading them today, I can say that yes, they're still exciting. The stories are exciting, and I was like, the previous book, yeah, I don't feel it. But you know what? Now I do. I was willing to get over all of the less good stories because there was momentum back then. Reading them one book per month is not like that because I know where this is going. Of course, Come on, we know where this is going since book one, how this will end. But yeah, I could get through some of the rough patches and read them one by one. I can even read those stories separately from one another. If I stumble upon any of those stories, I can read it easily. It will be a fun experience. I guess I may have reread some of them throughout the years in collections of fantasy stories. But yeah, they're good. They're good, fun sword and sorcery stories who aspire to be something more, and they do it in a good way. So, see you next month. We'll talk about Stormbringer. Thank you for watching. If you still watch and you're not subscribed, do so. And yeah, I have to think about what I'll do with other Moorcock books next year. I don't know, maybe Corum. Oh god, Hawkmoon. Not Hawkmoon. Please, God, not Hawkmoon. I don't know, maybe I should do some more Moorcock stuff um, as I revisit those old stories, alright? It will be fun. So tell me if you want any specific hero out of it. I mean, last month we talked about Erikozi. And I've got the Von Becks here. I've got Hawkmoon, both series of Hawkmoon. I've got the first trilogy of Corum, Kintu Jerry Cornelius, which is I really want to reread Jerry Cornelius because that's an experience. So enough bubbling. I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you for watching.